Hey y'all, welcome to this week's edition of New Books Releasing, and this is the week of February 20th. I think we have more fantasy this week, whereas last week, if I'm remembering the week right, it was more mystery. Maybe. I'm Morgan though, and thank you so much for clicking on this video to find out the new books coming out. I will have timestamps for all the different genres, so you can pick which one you actually care about if you don't want to look into all of the different books. There are some pretty decent ones on this list though that were surprising, that some I hadn't heard of before, some I have seen talked about, and so please enjoy the list. Starting off this week is going to be the fantasy genre, and the first one is Nocturne by Alyssa Weiss. And look at the pretty ballerina. It says Nocturne is a rich, lush fairy tale reimagining that brings together elements of Beauty and the Beast, Phantom the Opera, and Persephone against the backdrop of a ballet world in the Depression-era Chicago. With lyrical prose, romance, mystery, and magic, this atmospheric fantasy is as enchanting read that will keep you in suspense to the very end. Wow. It didn't look like a tongue twister or seem like a tongue twister, but it would not come out of my mouth. I'm very sorry that we got off to a start like that today. Since growing up in Chicago's Little Sicily in the years following the Great War, Grace Dragata has always wanted to be a ballerina, ever since she first peered through the windows of the Near North Ballet Company. So when Grace is orphaned, she chooses the ballet as her home, imagining herself forever ensconced as a transient world of light and beauty is so different from her poor immigrant upbringing. Years later, when the Great Depression is in full swing, Grace has become the company's new prima ballerina, though achieving her long-held dream is not the triumph she once envisioned. Time and familiarity have tarnished the shining vision, and her new position means the loss of her best friend in the world. Then she attracts the attention of the enigmatic Master La Rosa as her personal patron and realizes the world is not as small or constricted as she had come to fear. So, it's the historical fantasy because it takes place in the past and we have the elements of magic. And yeah, it's just very pretty sounding. Another one that is listed as historical fiction / urban fantasy because it has a dual timeline happening. I don't know what's happening with my fingers. And that is History of Witches by Carolina. Kara should have been dead nearly 3,000 years ago, but destiny had other plans. Prophesied before her birth to become the most powerful witch of all, her fate was always intertwined with Daniel's. Navigating the world as immortals, the two create their own family throughout the millennia as witches, vampires, and demons fight with and against each other, leaving their own prints on history. But when an ancient evil they thought had been destroyed centuries ago returns, the supernatural world is once again threatened. Old grudges and feuds must be put aside, enemies must become allies, before everything they know is taken from them. And Kara will need to do the impossible if the supernaturals of the world have any hope of surviving what is to come. And the review on this one said, witches and vampires, what more do you need to know? So somebody really liked it, and they felt that that was good enough. I do like that it's going to have a dual timeline of like the past, which is the historical fiction part, and the urban fantasy of today's world with magic. So I think it sounds intriguing, and the cover does look a little bit interesting. And our next one is going to be one of my anticipated releases, and this is Arch Conspirator by Veronica Roth. This is dystopian fantasy, though I hadn't ever heard of its original thing. I mean, its main character is called Antigone, and I thought that was a really odd name, but apparently this is a reimagining of the Antigone tale, which I should have looked up. I still haven't looked it up yet though. So yeah, it says outside the last city on Earth, the planet is a wasteland. Without the archive where the genes of the dead are stored, humanity will end. Antigone's parents, Oedipus and Jocasta, are dead. Passing into the archive should be a cause for celebration, but with her militant uncle Chiron rising to claim her father's vacant throne, all Antigone feels is rage. When he welcomes her and her siblings into his mansion, Antigone sees it for what it really is, a gilded cage where she is captive as well as guest, but her uncle will soon learn that no cage is unbreakable, and neither is he. So, I mean, it sounds cool, and it sounds, the dystopian aspect sounds cool. I'm going to have to look up whatever the original story is, though. Our next fantasy is just listed as a contemporary. It says it's part mystery, part dystopic thriller, and part magical academia with a lot of heart. This is going to be Our Lady of Mysterious Ailments, and it is the second book by T.L. Hutchins after Library of the Dead. Our main character is Ropa, who is a ghost talker. She lives in Edinburgh, Scotland, and when she dropped out of school, she turned this ability into her job as she talks to the spirits and takes messages to those loved ones that they have left behind. But in the first book, the ghosts have let her know that something has been happening to children, something's preying on children and just leaving their bodies alive, but they're pretty much just a husk. That something wrong is very much happening. So she uses something, Scottish wit or wiles or something, I think is what it said. But she's also using Zimbabwean magic. So it's mixing those two historical differences and elements into this story. And in this new one, Our Lady of Mysterious Ailments, it says Ropa, our indelible resident ghost talker, is back on a new case, this time working to uncover a mysterious illness that is resisting magical and medical remedies alike. And this thrilling new installment takes us right back to the magical underbelly where we left in Library of the Dead, while treating us to even more dark discoveries to expose. So it sounds like it's got a lot of elements happening, and it is very highly anticipated, it sounds like. So that comes out this week. Our next one is fantasy romance, and a lot of the blurbs are like for fans of Throne of Glass and Tamara Pierce. They're like this series. And that is going to be Lady of the Drowned Empire by Frankie Diane Mallis. This is the third book, and the first one is called Daughter of the Drowned Empire. I must say that I love all of these covers. I do love all of these covers. In this one, we are following 19-year-old mage Lady Lyrana Batava is third in line to the seat of power of Barmeria, a position of wealth and privilege, but not safety. Barmeria falls under the rule of the Lumerian Empire, survivors of a celestial war whose island sank in the drowning. Now all Lumerians submit to the Emperor and his strict laws about magic. He decides what magic can be practiced and what powers remain forbidden. He decides who will die for possessions of forbidden magic. And it sounds like you're like born with this magic, and yet some types of it are forbidden. And her older sisters are in possession of this dangerous magic. But her magic sounds different, though when her time of trial comes to like be tested and everything, her magic is not okay, and she is exiled from the land and presumed, she's going to die. But instead, she ends up undertaking a brutal test of strength, which she has to do without magic, and she's forced to train with Lord Ryan Hart, the man she secretly loved since she was a girl, a feared warrior in exile himself, and forbidden to her in every way. And there will be a rebel army. And apparently, this series just keeps going, but it sounds cool. The covers are adorable. Not adorable. Beautiful? Magical. I like the cover, and apparently the word is not coming to my head. I can picture it. It's got a staff and a thing. And the first one's got like a sword and crumbly walls and water. Yeah, that's The next one is another one from my anticipated releases, and this is apparently YA. I don't know if I knew that when I first said it was an anticipated release, but it's an YA epic fantasy. It's going to be the first in a series, and it is a translated work. Also, I don't know that I knew that before. This is Iron Wolf by Siri Peterson. It says she's the author of the Raven Rings trilogy, which I haven't read. Wava knows all about blood readers, prays for their sight. They are nothing but swindlers preying on people's fears for power and profit. Born by blood readers herself, she knows only too well, and she has vowed to never become one of them. But when her family is threatened by Vadari, the eerie lasting ones who never age, Yova is why can't I say this, is entangled in a desperate hunt for the Blood Reader's legacy, a dark secret that once changed the world, and may do so again. In order to survive, she has to confront the terrifying childhood memory she has fought to forget. And it says this is built on Norse foundation about blood, desire, and addiction. And it's the first book in a planned trilogy called Vidari, an independent series set in the universe of her other series. So, okay, so she's building a bigger universe. That's really cool. That sounds intriguing. I like when authors do that, because that means we get more world building history. My favorite thing ever, you know. Okay, and now we shall move into our next genre, which is mystery books. And these are all, I don't think any of them are dark mysteries. Well, okay, maybe. No, I don't think. The bottom one maybe, but it's also listed as a fiction mystery, so it's dark is not the same. The first one, though, is going to be Stilltown Magnolia by Melissa F. Miller. Apparently, this is also an interconnected world with one of her other series, but this is where a new character is getting her own thing to shine. It says, Macy Farley is a Georgia peach transplanted to Pittsburgh. She has won the hearts of her audience as their favorite hometown news anchor for 7 years running. Then she dared to report the truth about the influential and eccentric billionaire who bought the TV station where she's worked for over a decade. Now she's out of a job but sitting on a pile of money thanks to the golden parachute in her contract. It's the perfect time to follow her dream of being an independent investigative reporter. But Macy's plans are falling apart. The station's delaying her payout, and her savings are dwindling fast. Worse yet, she can't seem to land her first story. Then she encounters the ex-wife of Landon Lewis, a brilliant but troubled tech genius who jumped to his death. His still reeling ex-wife insists he was pushed. Why would he kill himself when he was on the cusp of receiving a $100 million windfall? Macy has no idea, but she knows one thing. She's just found her story. All she has to do is follow the money and stay alive long enough to break the story. The next one is a more humorous mystery, and this is Murder Your Employer, The McMasters Guide to Homicide by Rupert Holmes. This one is about a school that teaches people how to kill people, but it's people who the world would be better off without. So it's not just like a school for assassins just to assassinate people. It's all of these people have reason to kill people that the world would be okay without them. It says, who hasn't wondered for a split second what the world would be like if the person who is the object of your affliction ceased to exist? But then you've probably never heard of the McMasters Conservatory, dedicated to the consummate execution of the homicidal arts. To gain admission, a student must have an ethical reason for erasing someone who deeply deserves a fate no worse nor better than death. The campus of this Poison Ivy League college is its location unknown to even those who study there. Is where you might find yourself the practice target of a classmate, and where one's mandatory graduation thesis is getting away with the perfect murder of someone whose death will make the world a much better place to live. Prepare for an education you'll never forget, a delightful mix of witty wordplay, breathtaking twists, and genuine intrigue. Murder Your Employer will gain your admission to a wholly original world cocooned within the most entertaining book about well-intentioned would-be murderers you'll ever read. Our last mystery that's also like fiction mystery is called It's One of Us by J.T. Ellison. This one says, everybody laughs, the ones you think you know best of all. Olivia Bender designs exquisite home interiors that satisfy the most demanding clients, but her own deepest desire can't be fulfilled by marble counters or the perfect rug. She desperately wants to be a mother. Fertility treatments and IVF keep failing. And just when she feels she's at her lowest point, the police deliver shocking news to Olivia and her husband, Park. DNA results show that the prime suspect in a murder investigation is Park's son. Olivia is relieved, knowing this is a mistake. Despite their desire, the Benders don't have any children. Then comes the confession. Many years ago, Park donated sperm to a clinic. He has no idea how many times it was sold or about how many children he has sired. And then it goes deeper and deeper into the truths of things. So, it says, this twisting, emotionally layered thriller explores the lies we tell to keep a marriage together or break each other apart. And our last genre is fiction, which just the one book. It is somewhat of a short list this week. And that book is I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Makkai. Makkai? Makkai? Bodie Kane has always been plagued by questions about a murder that rocked her boarding school in 1995. When she returns to the campus as a professor, the doubt she has kept at bay about the investigation comes creeping back. Does she know something that could crack the case wide open? It says a successful film professor and podcaster, Bodie Kane, is content to forget her past, the family tragedy that marred her adolescence, her 4 largely miserable years at New Hampshire boarding school, and the murder of her former roommate, Thalia Keith, in the spring of their senior year. Though the circumstances surrounding Thalia's death and conviction of the school's athletic trainer, Omar Evans, are hotly debated online, Bodie needs to let sleeping dogs lie. As she falls down the very rabbit hole she was so determined to avoid, Bodie begins to wonder if she wasn't as much of an outsider at Granby as she thought, if perhaps back in 1995 she knew something that might have held the key to solving the case. This gives me vibes of the It Girl, which did not work for me, but maybe this will play out better. Maybe this will play out better. Well, that is all for this week. It was maybe just a little bit shorter than some of the others, and some of the others were really long too. I hope either way you were able to find something intriguing sounding. I definitely have a few that I'm going to want to put on future TBRs from this week, and next week's list is looking pretty good already. Just the preliminaries are looking cool, so make sure to come back next week. And if you haven't subscribed, please go check out some of my other content, my reviews, my general bookish videos, unboxings, to see if you like my content, and maybe you'll want to subscribe to keep up with all the new releases coming out and review videos for those future new releases, and just general bubbly content. Trying to do vlogs, still reading vlogs and me. Thank you so much for being here though. I hope you're finding something awesome to read today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.